Step into the Fieldhouse, your front row seat to legendary victories and untold stories. Hey, I'm your host, Lance Leonard, breaking down sports from the inside out, along with co-host Jimmy Lackey. It's more than just a game. It's the Fieldhouse Podcast. Hey, welcome in. We're at the Fieldhouse Podcast today, number 3. And this is going to be a fun one for us because we actually know this guy very well. I am your host, Lance Leonard. We got Jimmy Lackey, CEO and Prez of Kids Inc., and he's going to be asking questions as well. He's the co-host. Jimmy, I've always asked you every week we do the podcast, what's the best thing that happened to you today?
Best thing happened to me today is I went to children's mass this morning and watched the kids. Everybody ought to do that on a Friday morning. So it's get your day started off pretty well.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I like that a lot. So, hey, as always, this is a production of Kids Inc. And here on our sports network. We're so happy to bring this to you. Thank you for all the response we've had. We hope we can continue this and bring you interviews that inspire you, that challenge you, that and also you get to know our guests, which is the best part about this. So let's get to this one right away. We got Michael McBroom in. Michael, you made a little news this week, last couple of weeks. Are you a news guy or not a news guy? By that I mean, do you want your name out there all over the place?
I do not.
I knew that answer. That's why I asked it. No, it's all fair. Michael, after I think it's 2006 is when you officially call starting at WT or earlier.
That's when I started it as AD.
As AD,
But I started in 2000 as associate AD.
Yeah. So that's 6 years that people don't forget learning experience. Anyway, Michael has taken the athletics director job, director of athletics. I'm not sure what they call it anymore, but he is at Stephen F. Austin after a historic career here at WT, and we just wanted to bring him in. He's very wisdom and wise with what goes on, especially in the Division II world, but in athletics in general. And we all know how that's changing with NIL, with the portal, with coaches just moving like crazy and players. So, but also the background of a great school like West Texas A&M that he took, 9 national titles. I don't know. Is there one thing you're proudest of that before we get going? Of all that you've accomplished? For instance, Jimmy, I know you and I both are passionate about this, but WT was the first Lone Star Conference school to fully scholarship their women's programs, and that's because Michael pursued that, and I'm very proud of you for that.
Thanks.
I know that's kind of down on the list of what maybe people think are important, but I think evening the playing field for both was critical.
Yeah, I think that was important. I've just always had the philosophy, and I shared this with the people at Stephen F. Austin on Wednesday. My deal is if you're going to put a team out there on the field, I have to be able to say you have a chance to win a championship. And it hasn't always been that way. It's still not that way at a lot of campuses. But if we're going to do something, and I'm sure you're the same way. Like you have all sorts of opportunities, but if you're going to do something, you're going to do it well and you're going to do it to the best of your ability. And athletics for me, that means if you got a baseball team and a cross country team, I got to be able to look at all those athletes and say all of you have the chance to win a championship and have a great experience. So yeah, the women's scholarship piece was an early thing that's low-hanging fruit. Let's get that done. But it starts with a president, right? Pat O'Brien came in 2006 with a new vision for WT, and he was an athletics fan and thought that knows the value that athletics can bring to a university. And I gave him a plan of what I thought WT could be, and he simply said, well, let's go do that. And so that started. But the women's scholarships was one of the first things.
Yeah, and this includes hiring of coaches. This includes facilities. This includes the best trainers, strength and conditioning. It's just not what we see take the field. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's a lot to it.
There's a whole background of organizational structure and the things that will ultimately, you hope, turn out to be championships on the field. And I've been, this has been a great time of reflection. And what's funny is there are not a lot of people on my staff now that remember what it was like in 2000 and 2000. I mean, Jimmy, you remember the old football field house and those old practice fields out there. We played soccer on it was the old football
Yeah,
practice
practice field.
that had a giant crown and it was only, I think, 57 yards wide. The NCAA minimum is 72 yards wide.
Oh, wow.
And so, some of my first battles with opposing coaches, the guy from Commerce in his bucket hat, he's out there with a tape measure for a playoff game trying to measure our field. And it's like, it's our field. Like, we're either playing or not, right? But just you go back and you think about the way things were 20 years ago. I'm proud of the way things are.
I'll roll the clock back and tell you one that neither one of you may know. So in my former life, I worked at WT and worked there for 13 years. And the last 7, I was in the alumni office. And I get a phone call from one of your predecessors, who was the athletic director, and said, I need a favor. Could you take this potential soccer candidate coach and take him out to Kimbrough Stadium to show him the facility? I'm the alumni director. Okay. I said, well, I'd be happy to do that, but you can't play soccer out at Kimbrough Stadium. This was back, I can't remember what year this was, but it was a long time ago. I said, but I'll be happy to take him out there. So Butch Lawfer shows up in my office.
Wow.
And we introduced one another and hopped in my pickup, and I said, Coach, I'm going to take you out here. And I don't know come from Sikkim about soccer, but I can tell you right now, you can't play soccer in this stadium. This was before we had turf at Kimbrough Stadium.
Yeah.
The end zones had those little curved in edges. We had what I call track surface for the sidelines on each side. But we drove in the south end. We went up the hill, got to the top. He looks out the window and he says, he said, you can't play soccer down there. And I just kept driving around up the north end, pulled him back to campus, dropped him off at the athletic director's office. That's good. Good luck to you, Coach. And all these years later, who's still your men's head
Butch
soccer
Lawfer.
coach?
That's right.
And so that was the first day he ever came to our campus. So I remember those days.
Yeah, Butch and I have a lot of fun right now, kind of reminiscing back on the times.
I remember
That's
those
funny,
days.
yeah.
That's a true story.
Yeah, and that crown at Kimbrough at that time it was a big crown.
Oh,
too.
huge.
You could only see the opposing coaches.
You couldn't
when I
see,
started,
you couldn't see their
Steelgrass when I
knees.
started, yeah.
You stood on one sideline, you couldn't see their knees. From
Yeah,
the
that
other.
was an art for quarterbacks. That was underrated, not to overthrow receivers that are down below you.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
know what I mean?
Yeah. That's right.
I don't think they got enough credit back then. So, hey, I think a first obvious question, Michael, I mean, your daughter's at WT, you're entrenched in this community. Why leave?
Yeah.
That's a loaded question, Lance. That gum.
Yeah.
No, it's simple, but to the point.
Maybe I can simplify it this way because I think you guys both know Aaron Hunt. And Aaron and I sat yesterday, and Aaron said something to me, and it struck. And maybe it struck me because maybe it's at a point in my life that it hits. But he said they have a saying on the wall of one of their jiu-jitsu gyms or something. It's comfort is a path to a slow death. It's not that I'm comfortable at WT because I'm always juiced by the next challenge, but we are opening the last building that has been on my construction deal we're opening that in the next month or so. I desperately want to do the indoor facility with Jimmy and Kids Inc., and I know that will get done. But I just felt, as this kind of all unfolded, both Angie and I felt this was just God saying, tapping me on the shoulder, like, it's time. It's time.
I'm going to let him catch his breath, and I'm going to tell you something about this guy that a lot of people don't know. Michael and I share faith stories together. Our faith is very important to both of us, and we talk about it with one another. We share things back and forth, and so I know what he's fixing to talk about is coming from the heart because he and I share faith stories with one another.
No, I appreciate that, Jimmy. No, as Angie, as just things unfolded, we have both been in a mode of, when this all came up, we're just going to kind of listen and not dictate. Sometimes we get in the habit of saying, yeah, I think this is what God wants me to do because it's comfortable and convenient. And there are a lot of reasons to do it professionally. It's a tremendous challenge for me professionally to do it. I'm excited. We've talked before about the Colby Carthel piece and be able to work with Colby again and do something special for SFA football. But, so professionally it's pretty easy. Love the challenge. And to have a president again, like I had, Pat O'Brien said, I buy the vision. I've got another one now in Neil Weaver, who was at WT, who said, I buy the vision. Let's go do that. He's just a phenomenal leader. So professionally, it just aligns like, why wouldn't you do that? But then you have the family piece and wife. And as we talked about it, we're so much closer to her family and grandparents for the kids. My daughter will live in Austin. She's graduating from UT, so she's gonna stay in Austin. Her family and friends are in Houston, 2 hours away. Friends that my best friends growing up, I grew up in Dallas. My best friends are still in Dallas, and that's 2.5 hours away. I don't get to connect with them, face to face much. But now I have that opportunity. They're all buying SFA lumberjack gear now. So as it came to pass, and talking with people, it just felt like it's time to get out of the comfort zone, and we firmly believe that this is what God wants us to do.
Yeah, you can see his passion, Michael's passion for West Texas. That's where that emotion comes from, and how blessed WT was to have him. So, hey, let's take a break, and then we'll be back. Obviously, we want to know about the Carthel McBroom, the mending of the ways there. But no, in all seriousness, that was a big question mark out there, Michael. You heard about it, and we'll visit about that. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff we want to know. So stick with us. This is the Fieldhouse Podcast. Thanks for joining us. It's a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network.
Ready to dive deep into the heart of sports? Then tune in, because that is exactly what we are here for at the Fieldhouse Podcast. But the Fieldhouse Podcast isn't just about us talking sports. It's about all of us, our community, our passions, and our love for the game. That's why we're reaching out to any and all local businesses who want to get in early on the action. Whether you're a restaurant looking to pack the house on game day, or a fitness center wanting to help our listeners take their game to the next level, we want to partner with you. By sponsoring the Fieldhouse Podcast, you're not just getting your brand out there, you're becoming a part of our sports family. Reach out to us today at fieldhouse@kidsinc.org. That's KIDSINC.org.
Hey, welcome back in. It's the Fieldhouse Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. We got Michael McBroom. Officially, you're still the athletic director at West Texas A&M.
A few more days. May 14th, yeah.
May 14th. But he has taken the job at Stephen F. Austin as their director of athletics. And we wanted to have, and he's in here, we're chatting it up. He impacted West Texas A&M like very few have in the past 20 years. And one of those things is the hiring of coaches. You've done an amazing job with that. Do you have the Tom Browns of the world who, fair or not, changed basketball the way we watch it in Lone Star Conference? It's such a fluid, fun game to watch. Things like that. National champion softball coaches, things like this. Do you have a philosophy when you hire coaches?
I do. I mean, it's and it's situational, obviously, with the type of play that's going on in the league. If I want to, if we want to change it, all of those things go into it. But I start with good human beings. For me, I reached a point that you want to surround yourself with good people that you love to be around, because we spend a lot of time together. So you start with good human beings who are really good at what they do. I like people that have demonstrated loyalty. I can't give you all the secrets, Lance. But,
yeah, that's all right. Yeah, no, I like that.
Loyalty is a big thing,
too.
a commitment, to the process, and some loyalty to the organization. Those are important things for me. I spend a lot of time on former players and what was your experience with that, that coach and that program, because at the end of the day, I think you always have to remember that the athletics program is simply a part of an overall university that's a mission to educate young people. And athletes are young people who are using their athletic ability to help pay for, in part or all, of their education, which will serve. I mean, that's, when you cut it down, that's what it is, right? And so that experience needs to be really, really strong, directed by the head coach. And because you want your athletes to get a degree and win championships with people that are going to be their lifelong friends. And 40 years from now, they're still coming back for homecoming and talking about, the plays that won the game or who did, and making fun of their coach. That's if you lose sight of what an athletics program is supposed to be for a university. That's part of the reason college athletics is in a mess today. University presidents and ADs have forgotten what it's really supposed to be about. And that's fine at the highest level, but at Stephen F. Austin, at West Texas A&M, at your traditional colleges, not the powers, athletics is part of the overall university piece, and you have to find coaches that fit that.
When I ran the alumni office, Michael, I used to tell anybody that would listen, particularly on the administrative side of things, you have to understand the part that athletics plays at a university, particularly in a culture like we have in the Panhandle of Texas or anywhere in the state of Texas for that matter. Unfortunately, good or bad, there's not a section in the newspaper every day about education and what's happening at WT. There's not a segment, 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock newscast every night about what's happening at WT. But I've always thought the reason they make the sportscast late is so that we'll all stay and watch, because sports is the big deal. But there's a section in the newspaper, best I remember, Lance, about sports.
Used to be a newspaper, yeah.
And that's a piece of our culture, and it's important. And it's a huge recruiting tool for the university, because we all know you bring an athlete to campus, whether it's male or female, boyfriend or girlfriend may trail along, or 2 or 3 friends trail along, because we run in packs. And it plays a huge role in the overall scope and mission of any university, particularly those like-minded with WT.
By the way, I have a solution to you, being in the media as long as I have. So I've always thought school districts, universities, you have these amazing students who have accomplished things. You have these amazing professors, amazing teachers, but you can't be everywhere. So you have to literally hold their hand, the media's hand, and present them that information. And we would see those stories much more often. Yeah. That's just my opinion. Yeah. I know it's old school, but you literally walk them up to Lee Baker at KVII and say, hey, this guy just, is a 4.0 student, blah, 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 blah. Hey, how about a story? Yep. Or feed him the story, write it.
Or even create.
That's a suggestion out there if you want your
create the content, just
create the content
package.
So here's a story for our listeners. Somebody can follow up with it. But what was the overall GPA of the men's basketball team this year? Right around 3.7.
I was going to say 3.67. Yeah. 1.
That's unheard of. Unheard of.
That's impressive.
That's a story.
That's
a story.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And
hey, one of the stories when you took the job, obviously everybody's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
McBroom and Carth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody knows. The football program is on a roll under Don. Yeah. And then you had to make that decision where you let him go. Colby was obviously his son, and suddenly you're taking a job where he's the head coach. Of all the combinations in the whole world.
Right.
You two together. So tell us how that relationship got mended and where it is now.
Well, again, I'm going to go back to the faith thing. I think God's got his hand in all of this stuff. But I wasn't going to do this if Colby wasn't okay with it. Head football coach, you don't want to go in there. And so we don't need to belabor this point because I think it's been said enough. Colby and I met. We talked a couple of times. We met face-to-face. We spent less than an hour on the past and clearing the air, but Colby and I have always worked well together, and we've always had a lot of fun. Obviously, what happened in 2013 that stopped. I had a lot of fun with him a couple of weeks ago. He and Don went off and kicked our butts, for the next 5 years, and they had a lot of fun doing it. But Colby's just a phenomenal human being, a phenomenal football coach. And I say the same thing about Don. And when I talk, and I needed Don to be okay with this also. And I think when I talked to Don, we both left it at this. It's like if we could have the last 9 months, if both of us could have the last 9 months of his tenure at WT over, we would both probably do some things differently, and we both wholeheartedly agree with that. So that's how we got to the place where, okay, and Colby said, asked, please come be my AD. I need you. And I need a football coach like Colby, who I know is going to do it right, and whose players are involved on campus, and he's involved in the community. And so very quickly, we're like, okay, we're good. Can we? And then we spent the next 4 hours on how do we make SFA better and what he needs. And he's just been phenomenal. And I could show you my phone, over the last 2 weeks, the texts, the phone calls. We are just 100% focused on SFA. On the broader thing for everybody, and I think Colby probably has said it to you too, it's for both of us, it's a way for us to say, put it all aside. If we're good, everybody else needs to be good. I think from that standpoint, it's really good for West Texas. I think it's great for Josh Lynn, the football program, because right or wrong, there's been there are people that are still ticked off. You got to get over it. If the players aren't ticked off about it, you still want to be ticked. There's still people ticked off about Joe Kerbel. Let's be honest, right? And that was 50 years ago.
Yeah, right.
I still get the Joe Kerbel piece. But that's part of the passion of college sports. It's what drives it. But I will say that it's. And I shared this with Colby and said, look, if I don't get the job, because you still have to go win the job, even once you have the blessings. If I don't get it, the greatest thing that's come out of this process was that he and I were good.
Yeah.
And we put it behind us, and Don and I have talked. And I think that's a great message for everybody that, hey, just because you may have gotten crossways at some point, that doesn't mean there's not forgiveness. And, hey, let's there's more to the future that can be more positive.
Yeah, just you know Colby and Don better than anybody around here, Jimmy. Let me just say this: I have had Colby on my radio show. I've had personal conversations with Don. First of all, Colby said, like you guys, that had many a conversation, even when it was Commerce WT at that time, and in his opinion, it was long squashed. You know what I mean? The conversations you guys had at those meetings were very professional, or there was not this animosity at all. And then he also said Don was not perfect in the whole situation. That's coming from his own son. Yeah. You know, it wasn't all Michael. You know what I mean? So for them to say that quickly, and you know him well.
I do. I know both these guys really well.
Very,
I know all three of them very well. Full transparency, one of my very best friends from high school was on Donnie's staff at Eastern in the late 80s. And that's when I met him for the first time. And I ended up in the alumni office, and I tried to convince two different presidents to hire him when our football job opened. I said, this guy's a winner. And I finally told Donnie, I said, get me off your reference list. Maybe someday you'll get the job. And, the rest is history.
Yeah.
And so when all this went down, and I'm saying this in public for the first time, I was in a tough spot because Don Carthel is someone that I consider a tremendously close friend. Full transparency, Lance serves on our board. Don Carthel's been on our board for many, many years. We're personal close friends. Michael McBroom and I would classify as personal close friends. And so I got caught in a tough spot simply because I hear it from both sides. I also see it from both sides. I don't do what Michael does on the same scale, but anytime you deal with people's kids, I don't care what age they are, you get your feet held to the fire sometimes. And so Donnie sent me a text the day this all came out, and he said, number one, I just want you to know it's all good.
Yeah.
I can feel the pressure coming off my shoulder as I'm reading this text message from him. And at the end of the day, I told Michael, and I said to Donnie, I said, I'm so happy for both families because I know both of them. And it's at the end of the day, it's what Michael and I talk a lot about. It's called grace and mercy. And Don Carthel is as good a faith and mercy guy as you'll ever meet. And so is this guy. And when you know them both closely, you have a different bird's eye view and front row seat to some things that a lot of people don't know. I know a lot of things behind the scenes about all of this that nobody knows, and I would never tell anybody. Mm-hmm. But I know that I've got two good friends that publicly need to know this is all good and everything going forward. we need to wish Michael and Colby nothing but the best, because Colby said it. Michael checked off all the things on the list they were looking for in an AD.
Oh, yeah.
So there you go.
They're lucky to have him. So
what I just heard is we have a new season ticket holder for Lumberjack football.
Not a problem for me. I just, I mean,
Hey, I don't know.
I will tell you, Bill Bandy and I got in the car and drove to Kansas City and watched him win a national championship for Texas A&M Commerce.
Yeah.
Got to go down on the field with him and take a picture, and to be there for that, that was special.
Yeah.
Would I have preferred that to been WT? 100%. But there's a friend of ours out there on the field, and dadgummit, he got a national championship, and not many people get a chance to do that.
Not many people also.
And
when
so-
Stephen F. wins it all, you're going to be there?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
I'd like WT to get one before then, though. Got to be maroon first.
Hey, as you take over, I know you have a big picture view of everything, Michael. As Division II, if you don't mind leaving your, and this is a way open-ended question. I apologize, it's so wide open, but your thoughts on Division II athletics moving forward. Where are we at, or where is Division II at?
I think Division II is at a crossroads. Because there's so many diverse types of institutions in Division II right now, and this is a good local forum, and I've said this nationally, so it doesn't bother me, but I don't think that there has been the emphasis or attention placed on Division II by the NCAA. Division II is a great model. It's probably the ideal model for college athletics, especially for small institutions, because you can have highly competitive athletic programs and manage the finances appropriately. But they don't have there's not an emphasis on football playing institutions. It all seems it's skewing more towards small private non-playing football institutions, and that's a concern. And I don't see it. And the football the flag bearers, the biggest programs in Division II are West Texas, Northwest Missouri, Pittsburgh State, Grand Valley. There are a few others in there. West Florida. I mean, Angelo State are all regional public institutions who play football, and we do not have a voice in the direction they're trying to take votes away from football members. And I believe that if you have football, then your vote should carry a little bit more, because you have a different look as an athletic program. So with all that being said, the shift in college athletics it's coming, which is going to benefit for the universities that want a highly competitive athletics program. It can benefit a place like West Texas. It's going to benefit a place like Stephen F. Austin through a reset. But I think for the short term, it's going to be a rocky road, because the NCAA doesn't value Division II. I think that even the moniker Division II, that alone says you're inferior. And so that permeates the national staff. They probably have 700 employees at the national staff. Maybe 10 are devoted to Division II. And I get it. You have to focus on the revenue. I get it. Right. But Division II is inferior to Division I. In the public eye, it permeates in the national office, and they need to change that. We all grew up in the Division I, 1AA, all those days, and they switched 1AA. What did it take? It took me a decade to get used to FCS and FBS.
Yeah.
But I think it is a big open-ended question. But I think it's at a crossroads. I think the presidents have screwed up college athletics. Gordon G., who's the president of West Virginia, where Mark Kellogg is now, he used to be at Ohio State. He's the first president. He came out 2 weeks ago and said, college presidents have to own this, and I'm one of them. We messed this thing up. We just let egos get in the way, and we were not being conscious of what the programs are supposed to be. And so, if more presidents will do that, now most presidents don't have a clue when it comes to athletics, and most presidents will agree with me. But the presidents have all the power in college athletics, those and the conference commissioners. But if there will be a concerted effort, not the power schools, but the presidents at regional publics that look like West Texas, regional publics like Stephen F. Austin and Lamar, those are the schools that need an identity. And I think there's incredible value in this FCS brand, they could have their own. FCS can have its own media rights. I say they. I'm about to jump into that.
Yeah, exactly. You're in it.
There are valuable media rights for FCS that can be standalone for regional networks. I mean, if you have, Texas alone can handle its own college network because it's only getting better with the number of schools and things like that. I think it'll go back to regional, but I do. As the NCAA progresses, college presidents have to stand up and say, we are not all Alabama. We are not all it needs to be figured out. Division II has especially got to figure it because there's no leadership and direction. There's no vision.
I agree. It's broken. I mean, the NCAA is broken. Let's just put it on the table. It's broken, and I agree with you 100%. And having worked in this environment, college presidents have the opportunity to fix that. And it's going to take some bold leadership. It's going to take some bold steps. But you've got these Power 4 or 5 situations, and outside of that, the rest of us are out there left to dry.
Yeah.
And there's really just 3. There's this power group, there's everybody in the middle that's got scholarships, and then there's your non-scholarship programs.
Yeah.
And that's it. And the bigger piece of the pie is that piece in the middle. And if it's handled properly, and like you said, from a regional standpoint, looked at from an intelligent perspective, and what benefits each institution from travel to budgets and everything, and put all of that together, you could really put some neat stuff together.
You can. It's going to take bold ideas
Big time.
and strong leadership.
Yeah.
But it's not hard.
No.
It just you have to have some people that'll work together to do it. It feels like, and I hate to be in a reactive position, but everybody else in college athletics has been in a reactive position for the last 10 to 15 years. Everybody's reacting to the changes that happen at the highest level instead of standing. It's like, nope, we're not doing that. Transfer portal, Division II is not going to have that transfer portal. We're gonna stay with because academically, it's better for students. If you're going to transfer, then you need to sit for a year in residency and make sure you get your transfer credit so we can continue onto your degrees. But nobody did that. Now you have athletes who are going to 3, 4, 5 schools that have 150, 160 credit hours, and they're still 30 to 40 hours short of a degree.
Yeah, that's insane.
Which is now enrollment management people love that because it drives enrollment and more. But is that the best service to a student?
Not for that student.
The grass
athlete.
is not always greener.
No.
We're losing the lesson of, hey, if you stick it out and work a little harder, you're going to really enjoy the benefits down the road. Some of those messages are lost, and that makes me sound like an old guy, and fine.
No.
But to the point, if it's going to take some bold ideas to get things back, and as soon as the bigs break off and do their thing, then I think we have a chance to do that. But presidents have got to align and say and put their foot down. And say, we're not
totally
doing
agree.
this.
Simply put, in NCAA, you have a cash cow in Division I football, and you've messed that up. You know what I mean? By allowing these conferences to be from coast to coast. Even the hardcore fans, there's no fan that really appreciates, the losing the Pac-12, and you have UCLA and UCA and USC in the Big Ten. I'm talking fandom.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not talking behind the scenes or anything. It's messed up, man. And they're going to lose that one eventually. That's become the NFL, a mini NFL.
Yep.
In my opinion, you're going to have 40 or 50, if that many.
Yep.
Power schools.
Yeah. The model that I saw was, for the other part that's ruined college is conferences. Just do away with the conferences.
Yeah, totally.
Because the conferences are just battling for members, right? What national organization has all these other governing bodies that don't adhere to what the National Association wants? Just break those apart. Have just a one body that runs it. And the model that I saw was 70 football programs. Break it up by sport. In 10 team regional divisions, and then you play that into a national championship. It's not rocket science.
No.
If you remove the conferences, it becomes really simple. And so and basically the old Southwest Conference comes back for
that's
and you take those power schools in that region, and you're going to play your season, and it's great for local fan support, national interest. It goes back to the old days when those conferences were just truly regional.
Yeah.
Just get it back to that through a national deal.
Building those great rivalries, don't you agree? I mean, how can Oklahoma State, how can you kill Bedlam?
Right.
How can you kill Bedlam?
Money,
exactly.
Because money is more important than that.
But it's not, though, in the fans' eyes.
And at the end of the long run view is because you're chasing that, it will ultimately kill the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to step back and reorganize this thing and get it, because regional rivalries, that's where it's at.
Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah. Totally agree.
Let's take one more break, because I want to talk about some more of his success at WT. I want people to be left with that.
Yeah, we'll do that. Hey, we'll be back on the Fieldhouse Podcast. Stick with us. Michael McBroom today.
Before we dive back into today's episode, let me share a fun fact with you. Did you know that the Fieldhouse Podcast is a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network? That's right, Kids Inc. isn't just any sports organization. We have been a source for youth sports since 1945. From teaching kids the fundamentals of teamwork to fostering a love for the game, Kids Inc. is where champions are made. And here's the best part. As a listener of the Fieldhouse Podcast, you're a part of the Kids Inc. family too. Head over to kidsinc.org to learn more about current registrations, upcoming sports leagues, and how you can get involved in supporting your local young athletes. But wait, here's the kicker. Have you heard of the Rock Rose Sports Park Home Field Advantage campaign? It's a game changer for our community, aiming to provide state-of-the-art facilities for young athletes to train and compete. So if you believe in the power of sports to shape young lives and want to be a part of something truly special, check out kidsinc.org today and join us in making a difference. Together, let's continue to support the next generation of champions and to ensure that every child has the opportunity to succeed both on and off the field.
Hey, welcome back into the Fieldhouse Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Leonard, here with Jimmy Lackey. And we've had a great conversation today with Michael McBroom. We want to put a bow on this. We kind of disrespected Michael by not really letting people know what he's accomplished, and I would like you to speak on that, Jimmy.
Well, I'd like to wrap this up, because those that have been around a long time, think about this. 18-year tenure as an athletic director, we haven't had one of those in all the time I can recall. But I'm just going to read this verbatim, because I kept this pulled up all throughout the podcast. 9 national championships.
Yep.
100 Lone Star Conference and NCAA regional championships. We've had nearly $100 million invested in facilities on our campus. Outside the Power 5 schools, you name me a place that has better facilities.
With that said, real quick, all the turf, Jimmy and Michael, isn't it one of the largest turf areas in the United States?
It was when we opened the sports park. It was the largest in North America at 780,000 square feet. We added the football stadium, and it's over 900,000 square feet. I think they're bigger now, but at the time, it was the largest collection of artificial turf in North America.
Yeah, and if you just go out there to your eye, Jimmy, and watching a softball game there, or a baseball game, or soccer, or even track, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's really nice.
$40 million in external support. We've enhanced our scholarship programs. We've already talked about that. Here's the one that parents and academia ought to be the most proud of. 37% improvement in academic success rates and GPAs of student athletes. That's unheard of. Great attendance.
Oh yeah, plus all the committees you've served on, at the levels. We talked about that on the show, but how important that is to the university to learn how to host a regional, how to do this.
Right.
Been in the top 10 of the NCAA Division II Directors Cup standings for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
That's a legacy in and of itself. Barring all the other stuff that people like to focus on, at the end of the day, we've graduated kids. We've had great programs. It's given us as fans something fun to be a part of, and get to know coaches, get to know student athletes up close and personal. As much as you want to be involved, it's wide open. Come on, come one, come all. That's been West Texas athletics, and kudos to you, my friend. I've told you that privately, but I'm going to say it publicly. As good a legacy in the athletic department as anyone's ever left our university.
Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that, and I call it affordable family fun, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've just done an amazing job. one thing I respect Michael about the most is because I've got a chance over the years to interview those coaches. Okay, so you kind of see them in a bad loss. Unfortunately, they have to beat a deadline. You got to interview them in some awkward situations, in some good times, at practices when they're a lot more chill.
Yep.
And almost to a person, it's just amazing the quality of human being you're in front of. And I want to applaud you for that, because that teeters down to those students. That affects them for their lives. And so I think you've changed not only coaches' lives, but players' lives, family lives for the future. So
thank you.
Your impact's pretty big right there.
Thank you. And I think when you see things like the graduation rates that's the trickle down. If you have people with the priorities in the right place, then again, as part of, I've been a small part of running, a small part of the university, but the purpose is graduate good people, and send them out. And I think when I think about the number of former athletes that are involved in the community in Emerald and Canyon now, it's like, okay, that's if they have a good experience, they're staying in town, and
they come back and they support our institution.
They do, and they're putting kids in Kids Inc. and all. I mean, it's a big circle, right? This community has been so special.
Oh, it has, and we love your emotion today. I just love it. So before he has too big of a head getting out of here, no national football title, Jimmy. Come on, man.
And that's
no,
we'll leave that to the next guy, and Josh Lynn.
That's brutal, and man, what a way to do this. But I'm just going to say this.
No, I'm just kidding.
I know.
I told Josh Lynn when I told him I was leaving. I told him I would be when he's in the national championship game. I'll be there.
Wow, I love that. So. I love that. And Josh Lynn is salt of the earth. He's going to get it done. He knows. Speaking of the D2 platform, he knows like nobody else.
He knows
so
it.
He knows what he's doing.
And if you've been at all involved around like the day-to-day of the program from last year to this year, and the quality of guys in terms of football ability, but also where we are, we have to get bigger and better. I mean, Josh is doing it. It takes a little time, but WT is a great football institution. It is a tough place to put it together and get it sustained. In the current model, but I think the Emerald and Canyon piece and Josh Lynn, the way he is, he will be in the national championship hunt here soon, and I'm going to be there
awesome.
On his side.
The day he was hired, we had a board meeting, and Coach Carthel came up to me afterwards and he said, "I'm so glad they're hiring this guy. They have a family lineage way back with the Lynn family," and so he was pumped, and that was enough for me to say, "Great, I'm in."
Yeah.
And so,
I just want to say that cat is competitive. Oh my gosh! It's.
He likes to go to baseball games too. He and I go to sod poodle games every now and then.
He does,
and
his
sit and shoot the bull.
His son and my son play on the same basketball team together, and I've been helping coach a little bit. I don't coach.
Yeah.
I'm more the team manager. But I've got to transition that role too, because basketball is pretty important. Second grade basketball in the area is pretty important.
So the most important.
I'm working on the transition model for that one too. Josh Lynn's going to take over my role as team dad, and he ran a practice last night, and I heard he got after him pretty good. So.
I know you got to get out of here, but this podcast has been something I've wanted to do for a long time, and we're 3 deep now. And I just want to tell you thank you for taking time, because I know what your last week and a half's been like. Thanks for taking time to do this for us.
Thank you, guys. This has been great.
All right, let's hop out of here. I want to thank Michael as well. A lot of great interviews with him, a lot of tough interviews with him, and never, ever shied away from one comment. And I want you to know how much I respect that.
Thank you.
Because a lot of people have run for me, and a lot of people have come to me just when they want something. And that's just a personal note for me. So, hey, let's hop out of here. We could talk all day, but this was the Fieldhouse Podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon.
Before we dive back into the next segment, we would like to introduce the group that has contributed to the production of the Fieldhouse Podcast, Rogers Lead WT.
This year's lead scholars are Kyle Brown, Kate Cox, Morgan Ellerton, and Jenna Hurd, and Riley Miller. We partnered with Kids Inc. to create a podcast that would reach the sports community and make an impact on the community for years to come.
Rogers Lead WT is a 2-year leadership program at West Texas A&M University that select college students, develop their leadership skills, and gives them the opportunities that every college student should take advantage of.
The core values of Rogers Lead WT are integrity, service, excellence, teamwork, and dreaming big. And every lead scholar gets the opportunity to enhance these qualities as they develop into the leaders of the next generation.
And with that, we would like to thank the Kids Inc. staff and Jimmy for allowing us to be part of this amazing production. Now with that, back to the Fieldhouse Podcast.